Good morning, everyone. Greetings and welcome to day 4 of the 2021 Summit. My name is Julia Beglane, and I am a Faculty Development Coordinator within the APUS Center for Teaching and Learning. I will be your Zoom facilitator today's session, which will be 45 minutes long with an additional 10 minutes at the end for Q&A. The session is being recorded and will be uploaded to Faculty Connect for future viewing opportunities. Live captioning closed captioning is enabled, and you will be able to turn that feature on if you so choose. For those who are viewing with us live today, you do not have to submit the survey for PDU credit. By registering for the workshop and attending today, your PDUs will automatically be awarded. You will earn 0.1 PDU per workshop attended or viewed. For those of you who are viewing this recording, the start code for today's session is fall. Please write this code down as you will need it for when you submit your Engage Summit survey. We will be utilizing an external polling site today. For those who are using more than one monitor, we suggest that you have Zoom on one and the internet browser open on another. For those who are using one monitor, we suggest closing the Zoom screen, full screen, so that you can toggle between the Zoom room and your internet browser window. And with that, I'm excited to introduce Bethanie Hansen, who will be walking us through turning negative feedback into a positive. Bethanie, I turn it over to you.
Thank you so much and welcome everybody. I'm so excited to see you here today. I have on the screen, are you able to see the screen? It's working, yes. Right? Okay, you can never know when you're presenting these things, right? You still don't see the same view. So if you haven't already, scan the QR code so you can open up the polling. There's going to be a lot of interaction here because this is a hot topic, right? Who hasn't had the painful experience of getting some kind of feedback they didn't really expect? And a lot of times it is negative or we perceive it as negative. So today we're going to look at that and I hope you enjoy the journey with me. I'm going to go ahead and click ahead. On the slides that have the polling, there is that link again, the slide before we get there. So if something happens and you lose the polling, you can always scan back into it and join us there. So we're going to talk about how to fix the problem of unexpected negative feedback and use feedback as a gift. So think about a time when you've ever received feedback that was surprising to you. Maybe it was unexpected. Maybe it was negative. Maybe you disagreed with the feedback. Hearing and responding to feedback we don't expect or that is challenging, these are not skills we learn in school or someplace like that. And we learn a lot of skills along the way. Maybe we pick it up somewhere. But today we're going to practically look at steps to do something with feedback like this so we can have a strategy now and in the future. This is our agenda. We're going to explore what feedback is, a little bit of background here so we're all on the same page. We'll look at 2 concepts you need for this session and that I believe will serve you really well in the future also. And those are mental models and the idea of reflective practice. And then we have 3 steps to this problem solving model that we're going to use. The first one is about pausing and recognizing your thoughts and emotions. And the second one is the Johari window where we're going to use it as a tool to get perspective. And the last one is this idea that we can actually use the feedback to transform our work. Even negative, unexpected feedback can be transformative, and there's a gift in there. So we're going to dive right in. My apologies, this is pixelated. It's not just you. When I uploaded the slides into Mentimeter, it did that to all my pictures. Fortunately, I don't have a lot of pictures. I'm just giving you an example of the handout. So this is a picture. I have a lot of handouts in a big packet that you can use. And the first 4 of these are sort of reflective practice. So thinking about your thinking, working through all that. Thanks, Julia. Julia has put it in the chat if you decide you want to download it now. Honestly, you won't need it right now, but if you want to make sure you get it and you don't miss out. So you're welcome to do that. This is where we're going to have a little poll using Mentimeter. And you're going to finish this sentence. To me, feedback looks like, so you got to be in the system there. And then you're just going to type in your thoughts. So take a minute and type in, to me, feedback looks like, what is it? We don't see any responses yet, but hopefully we will. Oh, there's a few there. Nice. Look at that. Okay, so we're getting some beautiful thoughts. Some are specific to work, some are more general. It's totally okay if you take this from any space. So you get to decide, what does feedback look like? Narrative from a student after I've graded an assignment. Combination of negative and positive. Take a look at what some of your peers here are sharing with us. Lots of ideas. Beautiful. They're going to keep scrolling through, and you should be able to keep adding to this. I don't want to interrupt your ability to respond, but I do want to go to the next slide. So if something happens and you didn't get a chance to type your thoughts, you are also welcome to add to the chat if needed. So we never know if the polling is going to continue. I hope you're seeing some of these. And by the way, if you did go into the program Mentimeter and you're adding your comments right now, it's going to email you all of these comments at the end of the presentation. That's one of the cool things about Mentimeter. It sends you all the comments everybody put in. No names attached, just great ideas. Yeah, so we're seeing here that we don't all see feedback the same way, do we? Some of us view it as a positive. Some of us are a little nervous about it. And that's okay. We all have our own views. In fact, that's going to come up in part of what we're talking about. So let's expand this definition of feedback just a little bit. It could be a coworker's opinion. It could be receiving help or criticism. Could be getting input about our impact that we don't realize. Information to mark the status of how we're doing. Data points after investing the work. And some examples I've got on this slide are, the background image is someone planting a tomato plant. So nature gives us feedback, right? We get lots of feedback about whether we watered the plant enough or whether we planted it at the right time of year. And you can see from that picture of tomatoes what kind of feedback we're going to get. I won't tell you much about my tomato growing experiences, but most of my tomato plants look kind of scraggly by the end of the season. I get lots of feedback from nature. If you change your workout routine, the mirror is going to give you some feedback. The pair of pants you put on is going to give you some feedback. If you're trying to do something with your diet, the bathroom scale might give you the feedback. So there are a lot of places we get feedback, not just at work. We get feedback all over the place, all around our lives. It could bring us understanding. It could identify our blind spots. It could highlight the gap between effort and impact or results, what we think we're doing versus what the outcome is. It could suggest celebration, change, actions, or reconsideration of our direction. It also sheds light on how things are. There's some reality in feedback, right? And it gives us the power to learn, adapt, and thrive. Feedback is something we all need, and it has so many positives, and it comes from so many places. If feedback is so helpful, why is it that unexpected negative feedback is a problem? If you aren't in Mentimeter, go ahead and get there. And let's see what you think. Why is unexpected negative feedback a problem when feedback is such a good thing? If you can type them in, go ahead. If you're not able to get to Mentimeter, you're welcome to put them in the chat as well. Totally fine both places. Seems insulting. Yeah. Catches you off guard. Off-putting, threatening. Yeah. Look at that. There's the ego. There's some cognitive dissonance. Look at all these beautiful thoughts. So we have, oh, surprising. It's getting bigger, which means more people are typing that word. The more people type a word, the bigger it gets in the word cloud. Misaligned with our views, hurtful, unexpected. Yeah. So many reasons, right? There's so much. If yours didn't turn up yet, you'll still get these slides at the end and you'll see all the words on that cloud. I'm going to go ahead and click ahead. Oh, that's just a nice word cloud there. Alarming, attacking. Yeah. Okay, so here's another list I'm just going to add to what you've said. So thanks for sharing your ideas about feedback and also what unexpected negative feedback can do, why it's a problem for us. We all have mental models, inner thoughts, basically those things that create our world, and they can really present barriers to feedback. Some of the thoughts we might have are on this slide. It doesn't mean we're always going to have these thoughts, but some of the common thoughts people have when we are feeling a resistance to feedback. It's about me, it's character attack, it's personal. Or I might feel like it's a judgment, accusation, or blame. It might feel like criticism.
All right, folks. Hopefully we're all.
It represents only one side of the story. It ignores my efforts and intentions. Maybe it's delivered poorly. It might be vague or without context. Maybe I'm thinking it's actually about the other person. They haven't delivered it right, or they haven't given me clear information. Maybe I don't value the credibility of the person giving it. I might have assumptions about the feedback, like it's manipulative in some way, or it's just not true, or it's incomplete, or it conflicts with what I value most or what I'm trying to achieve. There are a lot of things we might think when we get unexpected feedback or negative feedback. And all of that is part of our mental model. So we have these mental shortcuts in the brain, or we might call them cognitive heuristics or biases. And they're basically our inner assumptions, our worldview. We all have our own. And some of these things can come from our family of origin, our cultural group, the hometown we lived in, a faith-based community, the employer we first had getting into the profession, the culture we're in now. There's so many places we pick up our beliefs and our values and our assumptions, and all of those things form our mental model. I wouldn't expect you to have the same mental model that I have. In fact, me understanding that you have a different mental model is critical to us working together. Pardon me, didn't mean to cough into the microphone there. I might have some expectations, but all of this is sort of hidden to me a lot of the time. Most of us are not consciously thinking about all of our values and beliefs during the day when we're doing our work. But the brain's a problem-solving machine. So if you were to think about it kind of like a superhighway, we automate our thinking based on all of these parts of us that make us who we are. So our brain likes to go down the easiest, fastest thought. And we might have that thought over and over when we have a similar experience. But we can change it, we can stretch it. It might be a little bit like taking a trail in the woods at first and then choosing to pave it and go back to that space. But we can learn to see something differently and see it differently long-term. It doesn't have to be the same way we see it all the time. So the idea is that our experiences and our beliefs and our values and all these things, our foundation of who we are on the inside is really what filters that unexpected feedback, whatever that might be. So you have a little activity in the handout we're not going to do today. I just want to tell you about it. This is a clip of the top page. And this mental model activity can walk you through a tough situation. On the top row, you think about your assumptions, beliefs, expectations, values, thoughts, emotions, and then you try to distill the facts and separate out kind of, well, what's my interpretation of it and what is just really the fact. Any kind of opinion or description or judgment aside from the fact is probably from my worldview, where I come from, or what my values are, or something like that. And the more we pull them out, the more we can really have space to think and not just react. So this one is a really good activity to just walk through a situation or a thought, and I hope you find it valuable. So the other idea is the first concept being mental models, just the understanding that we have them. The reflective practice concept is this process of thinking about what we've done and learned and experienced. It's our ability to, or a capacity to reflect on action so we can engage in the process of continuous learning. And also find a way to stand outside of ourselves to get a more objective view of ourselves. Reflective practice is kind of two-part. It's about thinking about it when the action's happening and then thinking about it after it's happened. We call that reflecting in action and on action. So the goal today is to learn how to use reflective practice along the path of processing any kind of unexpected or negative feedback. There's 3 ways to do reflective practice. You can think about when you're immediately feeling the reaction you have, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, something like that. And whatever's triggered just right away when you get some unexpected news or feedback. You can use reflective practice when processing the feedback to explore the perspectives and find the gift in it, which we'll talk about a little later. And you can also use reflective practice regularly over time. It can be used to continue developing our capacity and also process the experiences and totally transform who we are and how we work. So I'm wondering, just for today, why it's important for you to learn about doing something different with feedback. Maybe managing it differently, making it not a problem, or figuring out something around this topic we're talking about. What do you hope to walk away with from our workshop today? You've got the chance to just share a thought. So take a second, and this is really like a mini goal setting idea. What might be important to you about this? What do you hope to walk away with from our workshop today? Thank you for sharing all these goals and thoughts. Can someone type in the chat, when I click off the slide, are you able to still continue contributing to that, or does it close it? I don't know the answer. It was a separate window. It closes. Okay.
Yeah, it closes for me too.
Gotcha. Okay, type fast because we're going to go on to the next slide. I just want to make sure we can get to the content you need. And again, you should be able to see all these responses when you get the slides from Mentimeter after you've participated. You just have to put your email address in at the end. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move on. Hopefully you've had a chance to add yours. So many good thoughts about what you want to achieve today. Thanks for typing those in. All right, let's go to step 1. The first thing that usually happens when we have negative feedback is something emotional, mental, psychological, physiological. So the first thing is growing a skill, and that is to pause, recognize your thoughts and emotions. Now, I'm a person who doesn't always consciously do this. So if you're a little like me, you're not alone. If you're very good at this, I want to applaud you because I don't think it comes naturally to all of us. The idea is that we tend to have a physical response, and we also have an emotional response that becomes the story we're telling. Like, can you believe that person said this to me? I can't believe I got this feedback. I don't know what to do about this feedback. Maybe I'm afraid of the feedback because something might happen. Maybe I'm afraid about my role or my job or something if I got really negative feedback. Or maybe I'm just angry because I think it's wrong. There's a lot that can happen. Someone I was working with in coaching recently told me about this analogy, and I love it. It is Bruce Lee, who said, empty your mind. And he explained that a person should be formless, like water. So there's the difference between being the brick wall or being the water flowing. And it becomes the shape that it's in. It becomes the cup that it's in. It becomes the water bottle that it's in. It flows with the shape of the stream. You can put it into a teapot, it becomes the teapot. So Lee went on to say water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend. The metaphor here is about reducing our own resistance to the words and ideas and situations and people that are associated with the negative feedback. We can't really think clearly and make any decisions about what to do with it unless we do get that space. So this is the step one, the skill of getting a sense of pause or control or space to slow down. A brick wall, as I mentioned, is firm and immovable. It's totally resistant. And if we're thinking about flowing with a situation like water, we're free to adjust to the object or the feedback or the person, adapt and find a way through it, around it, with it, whatever it's going to take. This is an interesting idea that I've studied a few times, and I've found it personally valuable. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, it's okay to just consider it as another tool. But one of the things that makes processing feedback so difficult is we have all these emotions and we can't sort them out yet. Most people feel the ones right in the middle, most. Maybe we feel a few of the others, but it's hard to identify. So go ahead and click on what comes up for you. If you think about a situation in which you did get some negative feedback, where were your feelings? Where do you think you went? You should be able to put a dot there. And with so many of us in this session, we'll probably have a lot of dots on this little map. If it's difficult to see, in the center we have disgusted, angry, fearful, bad, happy, sad, and surprised. Oh, when you hover over the dots, they disappear so you can read it. That's awesome. Then there are second tier emotions like scared, anxious, insecure, weak, rejected, threatened, humiliated, bitter, mad, aggressive, frustrated, etc. So go ahead and click on what comes up for you when you think about an experience you might have had with negative feedback. I'll give you just a minute here to find it and click on it. It's a very tiny image, my apologies. If you want to find one of these out on the web and Google feelings wheel, you will come up with some great images, a lot like this one. Okay, about 20 seconds left to click on it. Now, why would we want to identify the emotion we're having when we're in that experience? There's actually a principle that's been researched a lot, and the feeling that we have really is caused by a chemical that's triggered from the brain. Like we have the thought, then we have the feeling, and it rushes through our body as this chemical. So we actually feel the feeling somewhere in our body too. Maybe our shoulders are tense. Maybe our gut is really tight. Maybe our hands are hot. They've studied that too, and they've done that scan to see where is the heat or energy happening on the body. And they can actually say, well, most people feel this emotion in this part of the body or that part of the body. So the other half of this would be first, identify the feeling. Second, notice where it is in your body. Identify where you're experiencing it. That alone gives us enough interruption to the thought to sort of get present in the moment and not be swirling in the what is going on with the feedback, and just kind of take a break. So it's a great way to just slow things down a little bit. All right, going to go on to the next slide here. So step 2 is pause, calm your thoughts and emotions. Recognize what you're feeling. Give it 90 seconds for that emotion to pass through the body. Consider changing your scenery, going outdoors, going somewhere else, maybe being physically active or moving, writing about it, noticing your feelings and writing them down and claiming them and not trying to hide them or stuff them or say, I shouldn't feel this way. Nobody should tell you that. You should feel however you are going to feel when you get negative feedback, and acknowledge it and go ahead and note it. But we can move on from it. Focus on what you can control. Express gratitude, practice positivity. There are a lot of ideas here. And I'm also going to suggest finding what I call blue sky spaces. Blue sky spaces are really any place that make you feel like your best self. Like there's a place in Idaho called Boulder Lake. It's near McCall. And our family likes to hike back in there. And when we're back there, the whole family is angels. They're just so kind to each other. They're just perfectly behaved. There's no demands on us. We don't have a lot of pressure, and it's just beautiful. So you have blue sky spaces, and you can go there or you can imagine going there. You can look at photographs and think about it. If you can't access it physically, you can connect emotionally to the space. That's the goal. All we're trying to do is open you up a little bit to getting back to who you are, getting back to center, so you can then make some decisions about feedback and move forward. This is the most critical part, because when the brain has been hijacked with that fight, flight, or freeze response, thinking that feedback is a threat, just like the saber-toothed tiger thousands of years ago, the body has a hard time letting go of that. It thinks you're going to die. So everything starts to just rush in when really it's not a real threat. It's just a thought. And all those things that we think about it are just thoughts. They're not going to come get us. All right, this one is pixelated. My apologies, but it's the way it imports. You have a handout called Blue Sky Spaces. And after this workshop, if you want to work through and think about physical places that invite you to be your best self, get out of being stuck, feel the safety, freedom, and possibility out of the stressful moment. You could think about people who you feel that way with, places you feel that way, activities. For me, it's music a lot of times. I'll put on my noise canceling headphones and put on my favorite pop music that's peppy, upbeat, and happy. So it might be books, music, art. Something is going to help you get back to the space that you want to be in to process what's going on. And that's critical to handling unexpected feedback. So I'm going to actually skip this one in the interest of time. My apologies, but we're a half an hour in and we have only 15 minutes, and I want to get to the real big stuff. So think about what helps you calm your thoughts. You're welcome to type it in the chat, but for the Mentimeter section, I'm going to skip this one. So on we go. Just to remind you, reflective practice is a simple model of thinking about what you experienced, noticing your reaction physically, emotionally, whatever it is, thinking about what it means to you, what thoughts you're having, and also deciding what you want to do next, which is thinking and writing about the now what? Now what do I do? When you have a clear sense of what you're experiencing, you can often think for the next steps a lot better. Writing this down is a great idea. If we don't get to the last slides in this slide deck, I just want to mention that when you write things down, always write it in a way that if it is discovered by someone you wrote about, you would not be embarrassed for them to read it. Like if you write about a colleague or a boss or a spouse or someone, even though it's probably not going to fall into their hands, we would never want you to write something you'd regret them finding later. There's a worksheet on this. This is the model for reflective practice, where you kind of describe the experience, go through your initial experience, what you did to calm yourself, and then the steps to manage the feedback. So let's get to that. Getting perspective on feedback. This tool, I believe, is so fabulous. The Johari window has 4 spaces to it. You have a space that is known only to you in the mind. Other people don't know these things. You might even have habits that say people at work don't know that you're a gardener, or maybe that you play the piano, or whatever it is. There are things about you that are known to you that others don't know. And there are things about you that others do know. So the hidden self is what's known to you that others don't know about. And the open self is what you know about yourself and other people do too. So if I'm going to be playing piano at my church group, that would be in my open self. Those people that I go to church with know I play the piano, and I know I play the piano, and that's a thing, right? But then there's this blind self. It's unknown to me, but it's known to other people. One of the things I like to put in that space is my weaknesses. Like, I don't always realize the impact I have or the weaknesses I have that I think I'm hiding. Everybody else sees them just fine. So there are a lot of things in the blind self space that people see about us that we don't see, or we don't know, or we don't realize they see. And then there's this other space called the unknown self. This is something about you that you don't know, and we don't know either. It hasn't been discovered yet, but it's your potential and it's there. Now, when you're getting perspective, when you're giving feedback or reading feedback that somebody's given you, a lot of times we're thinking about the hidden self. But I put this effort in. My intention was this. And this is usually the space that we come from when we're reading feedback or getting feedback. For that reason, it can be very easy to resist the feedback because we know our hidden self. Nobody else does. Then there's the observable stuff. Like if my manager comes into my classroom when I'm teaching online, she can say, you posted 3 days a week or 1 day a week. You were totally absent that week. These are things she can see and I can see. They're open to both of us, right? They're observable. But there are things about it that are blind to me. They're my blind spots. I have no idea. And someone with a more objective view might observe my teaching, the way I parent my kids, whatever I'm doing, and have feedback for me that I really need because I don't know it. And a lot of feedback we get from people actually comes from this space. And we resist it so much because we're seeing ourselves from the hidden self and the open self spaces through our own values, through our own beliefs. And someone else is giving us feedback from this blind self space. And often it's through their values and their beliefs. So it makes it a little more complicated to understand the feedback and to accept it for what it is. And then this unknown self, this is where we have yet to grow. And we all have strengths, talents, abilities, and capacities that are in this space. The more we discover them and cultivate them, the happier I think we'll be in life. So it's just worth knowing about that there still are these things. Yeah. So when you receive unexpected negative feedback, to which quadrant of the Johari window does it most often relate, in your opinion? What do you think? If you have a second, go ahead and stop into the graphic and drop the marker. Which quadrant, like if you're thinking of an experience you have actually had, where was that concern? Was it the hidden self, the open self, the blind self, the unknown self? Just drop a marker on there. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for clicking on that. I hope I'm not frustrating you by going too fast, but I'm going to go ahead and click to the next slide. We have a lot of people in the hidden self space and many in the open self and the blind self. We've got a variety. Yeah. Okay, you have a space again where you can work through those thoughts and pull them apart and decide whose perspective am I getting? Where's that space? And I hope you will. I hope you'll take the time to really sort out whose thoughts are these? What value do they have for me? And when you do that, be sure to take a time to reflect when you have been able to calm down and really notice what you're feeling and kind of have that experience first. That's going to give you the space to really get the most from being objective and getting perspective. So objectivity is the most crucial aspect of reflective practice. Thinking is very personal, and it's often in that space of just what I know that nobody else knows. So we can be more objective and get out into those other parts of that Johari window when we are able to be more objective, stepping back, considering what do others see, what do they experience. Once we start a practice of noticing, reflecting on what we experience and where the feedback's coming from, what to make of it, now we can take it to the next level. And that is, what is the gift in this feedback? We can find that by looking at what's within our control, where we have choice, what we're learning about ourselves from the process, but also from the feedback, what we're learning about others. We might be learning about their goals, their worldview, their priorities, things that we might never hear them say directly that we need to know. So we might be getting feedback in our feedback. And we can also get a gift of noticing where we can act on some new awareness we're having. If we're really able to process the feedback, there is a gift in it. Now, on the right-hand side of this slide, this is Bloom's taxonomy, just a bunch of questions to promote more reflection. Like, what was that experience? What did I do? What was important about what I did? Did I meet my goals? When did I do this before? Where could I use this again? The more we start thinking about patterns of things that happen to us, the more we have control over that. I've known a lot of people to tell me, this is never going to change. That person's always going to be that way. Maybe I should just get a different job or go to a different place. And they're surprised when they get a different job and have the same experience. We can only have a different experience if we get something different about it. Then if we want to change jobs, we can and have a different experience too. But we're going to take our same thoughts with us, and we're still going to get feedback no matter where we go. So it's great to see patterns, to get the gift of awareness, notice what worked, but also where do I need to improve? What should I do next? What's my plan? What's my design? Now this slide is pretty busy, and I apologize. In PowerPoint, I had it so that one thing appeared at a time, but in Mentimeter, it imported all at once, so it's a little cluttered. Pardon me. But take a look at the questions I've added here. These are just more questions to explore this tool. If I look at my hidden self and I think just about Bethany, what is it about my efforts others don't know? And thinking that helps me so much, because I can realize, okay, they're not supposed to acknowledge how much time I spent on that. They're not supposed to acknowledge the effort I put into that. They don't know. There's no need for me to expect that of them. And when I let go of expectations, the frustration goes with it, because frustration comes from unspoken, unclear, or unmet expectations. I can ask myself, what needs, challenges, or objectives do I care most about, where I'm operating from, and what do I value? I can go to that quadrant that many of you pointed at, the blind self, that's related to this feedback. What impact do I have that others see, but of which I'm unaware? How is that person actually experiencing me? What is that person's needs, challenges, and objectives that I might be missing? And what do they value? What are my real blind spots? We all have them, and we can either learn about them or try to hide them, but that's exhausting. So I vote for learning about them and trying to work through those. So we can learn a lot from that feedback, and there are gems in each one of these spaces. There's, again, a reflective practice journal in the packet that I sent you. And so now that we've talked through that a bit, I'm wondering, what will you try? What will you do after this workshop? Choose one new idea that you will consider, think about, or even a new practice you might apply. How will you do it? When will you do it? And share it with us here in the Mentimeter thing. And I'll leave this one open a little bit so that we have time to see all the responses popping up there. I'm pretty sure this is our last slide, so we have a little bit of time to let these come up on the screen. So go ahead and go over there, add your thoughts. What might you take away here? Also want to encourage you to take a look at the packet. It has a lot of these same questions that were on the slides that you can think about outside of this workshop and just try out. Thanks again, Julia, for putting that another time in the chat box. Yeah, fantastic. All right, we have another minute or two for you to go ahead and add your thoughts to this little survey. What will you consider or apply? I don't know if anyone here is familiar with this idea, but I really love the idea that thoughts can just enter your mind at any time, and thus you can let them exit your mind anytime. Almost as if you can imagine them just floating through the air. And when you have the negative thought about feedback you're getting that's not pleasant, you can let it just move on. That may seem an unnatural thing to do or an odd thing to do, but just because we think it doesn't mean it's true. Thanks for sharing all of your thoughts with us during this workshop. We have a lot of really good ideas, a lot of things to be trying. I think this is a journey, becoming capable of finding the gift in even the harshest criticism or feedback can be really difficult. And I think we can do it. The more we do it, the more we have control over our experience, which is a beautiful thing. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing your thoughts there. Does anybody have comments or questions they want to share about the topic we're talking about?
Jackie had a question earlier, and it says, what if the feedback is genuinely unwarranted? You know, maybe it's based on a faulty assumption or misunderstanding or something like that. How do you go about correcting the negative feedback? After all, it can impact so much in the workplace.
Oh, absolutely. I have a couple of thoughts about that, and I'd also love to know in the chat if others have suggestions for that question. My experience has been that a lot of times a person will gain anchoring bias. So if someone's giving you feedback that is not true, and it's kind of based on some other experience they had with you or some other thing, the anchoring bias is coming with them. Like it's always going to go back to that idea they had. So maybe the feedback is totally untrue, unwarranted, or whatever, and it's just kind of connected to something else in their mind. It's their mental model of you. What I've tried myself is to have the open conversation to explore the feedback and ask what it's about, get some details. If the other person really isn't open to discussing it, I might need to write something about my side of the story and then look it over many times to remove all my opinions and adjectives. So if I'm saying very this and really this and actually that in my statement, I know I'm still being way too emotional about the thing I'm saying. So I have to boil it down to absolute facts of what I believe occurred and didn't occur. And then I can have something that I've written, whether I refer to it myself to talk about it with the person or send it by email. Then I've got at least something that's dispassionate and I'm not fueling a fight with the other person. In the end, we're going to get some feedback that we don't agree with, and we really can't change other people. We might have to agree to disagree, and it might not be positive or pleasant. Yeah, I'd say if it's going in your employee file or something like that, and you really disagree, to write down the facts about what you believe and just kind of start from that space. Anyone else have thoughts about that they want to add in the box? I don't see any coming. I know that's a challenge for everyone, especially if it's student feedback and we don't have any way to respond to a student. We've gotten the end of course survey, for example. There are a lot of comments in there. I read those all the time because I manage a faculty team, right? And so I see some feedback that's just amazing. And then I'll often come across a really great instructor doing a good job and some weird, bizarre feedback from a student. It's like, I'm not sure where they were coming from. So it happens and we can't refute it because it was anonymous. So that's challenging. Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for being here. If you do have any other comments or questions, you're welcome to type them in the chat. Happy to talk to anyone about these ideas. I think they're very freeing when we can find a way to just kind of rein in the thoughts and emotions we're having and push through the feedback. We can see it a lot more clearly and be able to take some kind of action, especially if it's from a place of calm where we need to respond. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Bethany. And for those watching this recording after the fact, your end code for today is leaves. So if anybody has any further questions, we will go ahead and take them. You can come off come off mute, and we will go ahead. We've got just a few more minutes if anybody has anything they want to ask. There was a lot of chat today, Bethany, and going on. It was amazing. It was great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and thanks to those of you who were typing in the chat. I saw a lot of conversation happening there. Wasn't able to slow down and look because I knew we were going to run out of time if we did that. So my apologies if anyone felt like I ignored your comments. But we had some really good exchanged ideas. So yeah, beautiful. If anyone wants to save their comments, you can click on the 3 dots above the chat box in Zoom, and it'll let you save the chat. And you could actually save it on your own computer and read it later if you liked some of the things people wrote and you want to keep them. Yeah.
And just again, for those who are asking about the codes, the start and stop codes are for those who are viewing afterwards, who are viewing the recording. Those of you that have registered and were showing up today, we have captured your attendance, and we will go ahead and be processing your PDUs. And I again want to thank you, Bethany. This was great.
Thanks for having me. And thanks everybody for being here. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thanks everyone. Have a great day.